I like you, Riri, so you can call me Mephisto.
Mephisto.
Hello.
Oh. So, is that supposed to mean something to me?
That scene right there, which is probably going to earn me a copyright claim, perfectly encapsulates the sheer neutron star density idiocy of Marvel's Ironheart. The literal devil sits Riri down and gives her the entire spiel. I am known by many names. Oh, the price to pay for my help is something you won't even notice is gone. The people on Forbes' top 100 richest people list, I helped all of them. He spells it out for Riri in 16-foot tall blazing letters that read Satan. He does not merely do everything but announce himself, he actually does announce himself. And just to further hammer home the point, Riri has already, before meeting Mephisto, been told repeatedly that this is a pure evil force, ontologically bad, a dark force, a deceiver, and a manipulator whose powers are summoned through goddamn pentagrams. And yet, our supposed super genius, better than Tony Stark, Riri Williams, reaches out her hand and makes a deal with the devil. Not through being manipulated, not through deception or self-sacrifice, but by sheer, undiluted ignorance. And why? So she can reboot her laptop and resurrect an AI. A request so retarded, the devil doesn't even understand it. And instead, simply just resurrects her dead friend, whom the AI was based on. And all of that is just the tip of the iceberg that is Ironheart. A disastrous effort to artificially manufacture an iconic character. On a budget, on a schedule, and with an agenda, where the plot is more focused on race than on the superheroes it's supposed to feature. Now, this was always going to be a long shot for Disney and Marvel here, both companies having struggled mightily with the titanic task of creating any actually new characters, rather than relying on the ones invented 40 to 50 years ago, because, well, creating an iconic character is hard, as evidenced by how few of them there are. Think about Marvel. How many of their characters can you name? 10, 20? With obvious big hitters like Captain America, Thor, Magneto, Spider-Man, Wolverine, etc. But there are over 8,000 Marvel characters, not including multiverse variations on the same character. If we say that there's like, say, 20 truly iconic, generally well-known Marvel characters, that is 0.25% of the total number of characters that actually make it to that status. The overwhelming majority of Marvel's characters are supporting characters or B and D and C listers. It is very hard to actually make a big name character, and so any attempt to deliberately create one, to shove a character down the general populace's throats with brute force and accusations of racism alone, is pretty much an ironclad guarantee for failure. And that is precisely what Riri Williams' Ironheart is. A desperate attempt to make a character famous not by the quality of the character, not by the excellence of her design, or by the creativity of her presentation or powers, but by the color of her skin and the shape of her genitalia. As those two are the only reasons why Ironheart even exists. quite genuinely, she has no other reasons to actually be in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, not as a character or as a product at all. See, her story is the biggest issue here. There is no journey of self-discovery or experimentation that leads to her suit. When the show starts, she has already created it with 4 years of grants and funding from MIT. An incredibly prestigious school, of course. She was handed all of the resources to create her Iron Man suit on a silver platter, and still complains about how you can only make a suit if you have billions like Tony Stark. Now, ignoring the fact that Stark built his first suit in a cave, this is the Bernie Sanders style of complaining about the millionaires until you become one. Riri is already given access to MIT's resources and additional grants to fund her suit project. MIT alone has a budget of like $300 million, and Riri can use all of their facilities and teachers. On top of that, she is getting extra external grant money, and she's also gaining more by cheating. Riri is complaining about billions because she already has millions. Not to mention that despite all of the funding she's already getting, she continues with her illegal activities to provide further funds, and is, despite the entire school knowing about this, allowed to stay on despite countless dangerous accidents that even severely injured one of her professors. But the administration was even willing to overlook her selling technology, helping people cheat, and injuring staff. It was only after 4 years of this behavior that they finally were forced to kick her out, resulting in her stealing the suit and just walking out, with MIT making no effort to reclaim the suit or file charges against her for theft, despite the fact, I remind you, that she just stole a piece of technology that pretty much every nation in the world, and every arms company too, is desperately trying to create. The Iron Man suit launched a worldwide arms race. That suit is worth billions. But Riri Williams doesn't care, because she lives in a world where money is free, where resources literally does grow on trees and is just handed to her, and where access to help and other people's technologies and workshops is all just something she's entitled to. And even when she breaks the law and steals and injures, the consequences are barely even amounting to a slap on the wrist. So, we're already off to a pretty bad start here with the hero's journey. The tale of how Riri got her suit makes Riri look like a spoiled bitch, and the suit like a charity case hand-me-down, rather than something she built through her own sweat and tears. All of this, by the way, is a completely unforced error. The perfect Iron Man origin story already exists. You can simply take the start of Iron Man 1 and rewrite it slightly for Riri Williams, focusing more on the usual modern-day nonsense like Community. Tony Stark's story was that he started life as a carefree billionaire playboy who didn't really give a shit about anything or anybody. But then he's captured. He is taught valuable life lessons about hard work, effort, and self-sacrifice by Yinsen. And so after escaping, he gives up over half of his net worth and builds the Iron Man suit explicitly with the intent of helping others. And finally, he overcomes what he could have become in the form of Obadiah Stane, in the form of Ironmonger. And so his hero's journey is complete. Riri Williams could have had the same arc. She begins as a spoiled princess who's simply been given everything, but then it's all taken away from her. Maybe it's stolen by some industrial espionage or something. Maybe a greater power comes in from the outside and goes, no, you built this with grant money. Here's the official claim. We own your Iron Man suit now, leaving her with nothing. sending her back home where she needs to rebuild all the bridges she burned as she was a spoiled bitch when she took everything for granted and never cared about the people that raised her, the people who helped her out before she had MIT grant money. And then, as she slowly begins to realize the value of friendship, of community, she gains friends and allies to fight against what she could have been, the abusive organization that stole her Iron Man suit in the first place. A genuine underdog story against the evil corporations. It would be a bit current year to be sure, but at least that would be a story, and hey, one could then, and I would probably as well, have argued that it's simply just a slight retelling of the original Iron Man story, but better be accused of copying than pioneering failure, which is exactly what Ironheart, of course, goes on to do. But, alright, so the suit itself and its story isn't necessarily important, right? It's who's inside of the suit that matters, what they do with it, and what they intend to do with it. So, Riri builds her Iron Man suit, alright. For what reason? What was her purpose? What were her goals? Well, to show that she could. That's it. That's the reason. She built it as a middle finger to the man who doesn't actually show up during the show and, well, doesn't pursue Riri Williams stealing the billion-dollar piece of tech or really do anything whatsoever, so I don't really know who she's showing up, but somebody. So she showed them she can do it. These same people, by the way, also, funded her suit research for 4 years and helped her do it. But details. Her motivations are terrible, okay. And she's a complete spoiled prick. But, as I said, Tony Stark's initial motivations and personality weren't much better. He was an arms salesman that just wanted to strike it even richer, a playboy billionaire living the high life. Building his suit not through some great ideal, but because he wanted to live. So, Riri too has tons of room to grow, to change. So, what does she end up doing with her suit? This incredible, life-changing power she has created with other people's money? Nothing. No, I wish I was exaggerating. She does nothing with it. Or, well, that's not quite true. She does use the suit to commit multiple felonies. But what I mean is she does nothing heroic. She doesn't use it to save people, or thwart crimes, or stop the dastardly deeds of supervillains. No, she needs some quick cash to rebuild her suit, which was destroyed in a crash. Now, firstly, that is one weak-ass Iron Man suit. And secondly, Riri apparently can only fly her suit with the aid of an AI. She can't even land it without the AI's help. Because again, Riri Williams simply just assumes that everything will work out to her favor. Remember when Tony Stark ruined his cars in the first Iron Man movie and made a bunch of fuck-ups as he trained to fly the suit manually? Yet again, however, Riri simply expects everything to be handed to her rather than actually needing to put in any effort. And so after the crash, she then moves on to expect to simply be given what she needs yet again, just like she was given everything in the past. She visited a hardware store, a scrapyard, where she's apparently gone previously and nicked some gear. The poor store clerk is overjoyed, like, oh my god, our resident genius has returned, our big MIT star. I always knew you would come back to me eventually, and buy some stuff from me, from your local community when you become big and famous. Wow, it's so good to see you. Of course, at this point, Riri has spent 4 years at MIT and has never once visited this shop, and only comes back here when she has no other way to go. Because Riri Williams is a very bad person, which is something I think will be thoroughly hammered home over the course of this video. And so, when a stranger shows up and just hands her a massive wad of cash to buy replacement gear, Riri, completely used to just having everything handed to her, getting shit for free, just takes it. And so, lured by the promise of easy money, begins her criminal career, which she spends the rest of the show engaged in and eventually starting to extract herself from, as she realizes the gang she's joined is ran by a puppet of the devil. Oh, well, she doesn't actually realize that, but she figures that something bad is going on, and she doesn't want to stop them, mind you. She's not trying to interfere with their actions to prevent them from continuing to be criminals. She merely wants to get herself out of the criminal gang. Riri Williams, our hero. Now, the problem here isn't that Riri is a deeply flawed person. As I have belabored repeatedly, Tony Stark was as well. Or that Riri is black, which seems to be the only defense ever mounted for Riri. The problem is that she never reforms. Riri starts out as an incredibly selfish person that never thinks about her actions, and she ends the story striking a deal with the devil for the precise same reasons. And worse yet, in between the start and the stop of, thankfully it looks like the only season of Ironheart, she does nothing heroic. She gets herself into a mess and then spends the entire show trying, and failing in the end, to get herself out of the mess. A mess entirely of her own creation. She joined the criminal gang willingly and knowing full well what they were. The diversity alone should be a clear indicator of malicious intent, as we've got every checkbox that Disney could imagine. We've got butch they-thems, we've got a skitsy-ass black chick, we've got a could never pass in 1,000 years trans disaster, and a mulatto or two. The only white guy in the crew, indeed the only white guy in the show, is Obadiah Stane's son, Ezekiel, who Riri defeats by kneeing him in the balls. And there is absolutely no pretense here whatsoever that these are anything but criminals. They introduce themselves with their rap sheets as criminals. They bring Riri along on a crime, and they make it very clear that they intend to continue committing crimes. The only sliver of justification provided is that, hey, we're stealing from the rich people. They're not humans, right? They don't have any protections or legal justification to exist, right? And speaking of overly affluent, the Ironheart suit is, again, pretty much the only one of its kind in the world at this point, a non-Tony Stark Iron Man suit created by an independent genius, and yet despite it being involved in multiple crimes and undoubtedly being spotted by countless cameras and eyewitnesses, nobody comes knocking on Riri's door, the registered inventor of this suit, but this level of stupidity isn't even worth mentioning, like Riri ordering DoorDash to her secret hideout, or the gang being like, oh, they've got metal sensors in this place we need to break into, we gotta get rid of all metal, and then entering in there with jewelry and fucking suspenders. This entire show is a sheep dunked in urine for hours on time until it suffuses its entire being. This is an ewe that cannot stop shitting itself for 5 seconds, so why belabor the occasional dingleberries, huh? A show is only ever as smart as its writers, and these writers were towed in special little wooden carts behind the short bus in an attempt to prevent their pandemic-grade retardation from spreading. As even the metal thing is completely ignored, by the way, and was only ever a reason to keep Ironheart's suit out of the lab, as the suit would have solved every problem immediately. And speaking of the suit, it is remarkable how boring it is. I remember watching every Iron Man movie, just waiting eagerly for every scene with the suit. The suit was as much a star as Tony Stark was, and yet here, the suit feels utterly uninteresting, both because there is way too much of it and not enough of it. That is way too much because the suit has no weight or purpose. Riri makes it off screen with other people's cash and then steals it with zero consequence. It has no gravitas because it just exists. There is no story behind its creation. Riri didn't sacrifice anything to build it or struggle in acquiring it. She just has it. And it's on screen all the time. It's not some incredible spectacle, it's furniture. And there is not enough of it because it hardly does anything. It punches a van once, which is kinda cool, although yet again the piss-soaked sheep shows up and ruins it, as the trans disaster inside the van, despite the entire thing getting violently flipped over onto its roof in a catastrophic collision, well, the dude inside just walks away without so much as a bruise. Oh, and the suit is used to kick a dude in the balls once, so there's that. But it has no toys. No micro-missiles, no jet punches or tracking gadgets. Half the fun of an Iron Man suit is the variants and little weapons it has. Meanwhile, the Ironheart suit has precisely one toy, a buzzsaw, which is utilized precisely once after the Ironheart suit gets trapped in the back of a box van by a magnet on a winch. Oh, and by the way, you may be wondering how Riri got involved with Satan in the first place, because that seems like a bit of a leap in an Iron Man franchise thing, right? Well, you see, running that single buzzsaw apparently was just too energy intensive. No, seriously, that's the reason. After all of that, the suit runs out of battery in a fight, and Riri is like, oh, we gotta find an alternative energy source. What can we possibly find? Oh, I know. Hell energy. Again, no, I am not joking. And Riri knows perfectly well, by the way, what she is doing. She isn't misled or manipulated into this. The devil isn't there going like, it's totally harmless, you should completely do it and stuff. No. Multiple people have warned her that this energy is dark, inherently evil, and nasty beyond her wildest imaginings. And whilst at the moment she thinks it is Dormammu's energy instead of Mephisto, that's still a cosmic level threat she's trying to tap into by opening a portal between dimensions so that she can, well, slap in a couple more AAA batteries in her suit. Riri is risking the destruction of reality because she needs more electricity. Now, Riri charging her suit with satanic energy backfires. I know, shocker. The demon juice, you see, doesn't play well with technology, and so deletes the suit's AI. An AI that looks and behaves like Riri's dead best friend. Why and how did Riri make an AI that looks and behaves like a dead best friend? Well, she fell asleep whilst programming it. Yeah. And since I think I have adequately belabored just how retarded this show is, I don't think I need to elaborate on how idiotic that is or how that makes no sense. Now, if we channeled the charitability of Mother Teresa herself, one could suggest that this ridiculous happenstance was caused by a Mephisto to engineer events for Riri's fall. But, one, I doubt the piece-soaked sheep writing this could possibly have come up with something so subtle. And two, when Riri sells her soul to get her AI back, and I am getting tired of saying this, but yes, that happened. She sold her soul for an AI, not for her actual friend, which even the goddamn devil doesn't understand, as he could not have imagined something half as stupid as that. And so, instead of bringing back the AI, he resurrects Riri's friend instead, because any normal demon would assume that's what she wanted. Since Mephisto could not have predicted the gut-sucking depths of Riri's ignorance, he therefore could not possibly have set this trap for her. And Mephisto is a chapter in and of himself, by the way. He has no chill. The devil is supposed to be smooth, manipulative. He's supposed to get you to sell your soul and make it seem like it was your idea all along, whilst having an unnerving aura. This Mephisto is not that. He's pushy, he's aggressive, with all the grease of a used car salesman submerged in engine oil, and subtlety might as well be an Urdu dialect to this guy. He uses magic like it's a conversation starter, using it on random people in the background, pausing the entire scene, going like, haha, look at me, I use bullshit powers, just to demonstrate that I'm the bad guy. Beyond bursting into flames to pound home the point that he is the devil. And yet, despite him announcing it as loudly and proudly as he can, nobody in the show catches on. Even the super genius Riri couldn't be bothered to Google his name to see if there might be some sort of connection there to nasty entities. Not that she should have needed to, as she again knows he's evil and has been told again and again. She even ran countless experiments herself on his cloak to make sure absolutely with no doubt that it's not natural and extraordinarily supernaturally bad juju. And she does nothing to address this. The closest the show ever comes is when Riri, an accomplice in half a dozen crimes, including murder at that point, asks if she's a good person. To which the extremely diplomatic response from the man trying to unlock her iron chastity cage is, good and evil don't matter, bruh, they're just labels people put on you. Ah, yes. Labels like thief, career criminal, or literal ally of the devil. One would, by the way, imagine that the existence of demons from hell would somewhat undermine the idea of all good and evil being nothing more than societal labels, but oh well. Riri needs a bigger battery, so paint hell symbols on the ceiling and juice her up. Which finally leads me to the ultimate reason why I hate Riri Williams. She is, quite simply, not a hero. Not in any sense of the word. She's not someone that grows from her innate selfish ways into a hero. She's not someone that does questionable things so as to change her life and do better. She does not even realize that what she was doing was wrong, and therefore wants to change it. She is someone that starts out her story as a crook, and ends her story as the villain's henchman. She's not even heroic in some form of a woke way. Her room is covered in stickers reading Black Queen or Black Lives Matter, but she does nothing for her community either, besides stealing a kid's cart. It's like the writers simply forgot they were writing a superhero show, and that for the hero to actually be a hero, it requires them to do something heroic, and not just extricate themselves from their own mountain of self-made shit. Presumably, the writers figured that simply putting Iron in her name would naturally create connotations with Iron Man, and therefore everyone would understand that she's a hero without her actually doing anything heroic. But this only makes it even worse. When you bring in Iron Man, you are bringing in one of the iconic characters, and you are bringing in Tony Stark, Robert Downey Jr., who carries that role through his occasional asshole faces by sheer charisma. To him, the suit is merely an additional bonus to his aura farming. Riri, meanwhile, has all the charm of a disemboweled raccoon carcass left out in the sun. Not at all aided by her annoying ass AI suit that somehow manages to make a billion-dollar piece of weapons tech less interesting than a multi-purpose coat rack. Ironheart only suffers by comparisons to Iron Man. And if they really did want to try and ride Iron Man's coattails, frankly, they should simply have copied it more. Especially the heroic part, especially the way Tony Stark actually grows into being a hero. Instead, we are left to simply assume that Riri is a good person, that she is a hero despite all evidence to the blatant and repeated contrary. And that simply isn't a good story. You are not going to root for someone who never does anything good. You are not going to cheer for someone who only tries to get herself out of the problem she created. You are not going to feel sympathy for the person who struck a deal with the devil because she failed to back up her laptop. Riri Williams gets absolutely no sympathy from anyone. Not because she's black, not because she's female, but because she is a villain. And her every action and her every intent, purpose, and goal reinforces that. And finally, she is a character that simply cannot afford these kinds of mistakes. One could argue that this could be the beginning of a story where she'd slowly build herself up in multiple seasons, but she doesn't have that kind of time. Riri is already a blatant Iron Man ripoff that exists only because Marvel is a woke-ass goddamn company that wanted a black female character. And if that is your sole intent and purpose for the creation of the character, then she had better be absolutely amazing. She had better be the most interesting, the most flawless, the most charismatic individual ever put to film. Or yet again, nobody is going to want to root for her. Leaving us with the one good thing that came out of Ironheart Season 1, namely the fact that there doesn't seem to be a Season 2. Rest in peace, Ironheart.